Again, just quietly sign in, and then I really have to start right here because I don't want to keep you here forever. And I am Ginny Wang, Dr. Ginny Wang, and I'm the Director of School of Teacher Education and the Associate Dean of the College of Education and Behavioral Sciences. Okay. Welcome aboard. The reason you're sitting here is really because you are getting into this program that we call Teacher Preparation Program. And this is really the very beginning, so congratulations. And I really think that all of you who are sitting here have some kind of thoughts about becoming a teacher, and that's why you are here. And I don't want you to get into this situation without knowing what you're getting into. And so, about 1.5 years ago, I decided to provide this kind of mandatory meeting. And but today, actually, this is the fifth time probably the fifth time we're doing this. And today we're very, very fortunate. We've got some guests here, okay? And we have 4 gentlemen and one lady sitting here. And later on, I'll talk about 30 minutes, and then they will talk maybe about 20 to 30 minutes. They come from the school districts in Colorado. Okay, and they are the representatives of the school district HR directors, the human resource directors. Basically, they are our employees. Think about that, okay? So they have some very, very useful information for you to absorb, because I don't think you want to spend money and time just to get a degree. That's not the purpose, is that right? Because you really want to become teachers. I think that's the reason. Okay, I want to say that's the reason that you are here. So today, they drove all the way to come to UNC, and you are the first group which will actually listen to them with your own ears at the very beginning of your program. So just let you know that's what's going to happen, okay? And today's meeting we have scheduled to start from 4:30 and end at 6 o'clock, which is about 1.5 hours. And there will be a lot of talking, which is not the best way of teaching, actually, and it's not something that I'm trying to model. But simply because you're so busy, I know some of you actually have to reschedule your other things, or you have the courses, and some of you maybe, I don't know, probably you have already told your professor you have to be here because you have to skip the other class. So I really appreciate the dedication you have shown to this. I'm going to have this slideshow because the slideshow really can help me control my talk. Otherwise, I can go on forever. So, oh, by the way, and the spelling of my name, last name H-U-A-N-G, and it's pronounced as, you want to give it a try? Well, you're pretty good, actually, because most of the students used to say Wang. That's the okay. Actually, it's Huang. A little bit, education in terms of diversity here. It's linguistic diversity, okay? I'm from China, so English is not my first language, okay? At age of 25, English was my foreign language, okay? And I went to Canada and I studied learning English as a second language. So now English is my language of working and learning, really, okay? And Huang, H-U-A-N-G, in fact, the A-N-G, the sound in the Chinese language using the romanization, we adopted the German sound. So that's why it's not ang sound. Instead, anybody speaks German here?
I do.
Oh, okay, right. Am I correct?
I don't know, I wasn't a very good German student.
Oh. Okay, A-N-G, that's where the comes from, okay? And then Wu sound is the English sound, Wang, and then you have to pronounce the H, Wang. But guess what? I don't mind if you can pronounce my name or not. I really don't care. Nevertheless, when you become a teacher in the classroom, it may make a difference. It depends. It depends on what kind of students, what kind of people you're working with. Some people really care about how their names are pronounced. I happen to be the person who don't care. Okay? So if you cannot pronounce my name, that's perfectly fine. But there's one thing I would like you to tolerate a little bit. If you hear accents in my English, that's simply because English is not my first language. And I came to the English-speaking world after age 25, which means I have passed that critical age that would help me get rid of my accent. Okay, so just give you a little bit of background here. Actually, probably you don't see the relevance at this point, but later on I'll point out why I started this introduction using myself. Okay, I would like to follow this PowerPoint right here. This is, first of all, EDFE110 start to know this is the right course right here, correct? Okay, and a little bit structure here, because in the past some of our candidates really didn't know where they were supposed to go to when they had some issues, when they needed some help, so that's why we have this. So now you are in the College of Education and Behavioral Sciences, okay? How many of you are from the secondary program? Please raise your hands right now. Okay, thank you very much. Do I have English education? Thank you. Science education? Nobody? Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay. Foreign language? Not today. Okay, English? Okay, thank you. Have you covered the secondary content? Math? Right. Okay, thank you. Social studies? Thank you. Okay, now K to 12. I'm talking about music, art, and physical education. Someone? Okay, thank you very much. Now, elementary. Thank you. Early childhood. Thank you very much. I think I've covered the whole range. That's the kind of, okay, so you know who you are right now. If you're elementary, probably got in the program as interdisciplinary studies with elementary licensure, is that right? Okay. Early childhood, you are in the School of Teacher Education, but if you're secondary and K to 12, actually, you used to be in your content area in the college, your own college. Now you are shared students. I would like you to keep that in mind. You are shared students. So two people are responsible for you, okay? You have us, the School of Teacher Education now. You also have your content area college, okay? That is responsible for your whole program. In the School of Teacher Education, no, in the College of Education, we have actually 3 schools and 5 departments. And the School of Teacher Education is the biggest one right here, as you can see. So I'm going to talk, special education. I'm so sorry, I forgot about you. You're so important, actually. Okay, so that's why I only have these 2 things right here, because that's where you are. School of Education, we have all these programs. Under special education, we have all these programs. So all of you are in undergraduate programs, so I'm not going to talk about anything about the graduate program for today, okay? And I'm the director. At the same time, if you look at the staff member right here, we have all these people. Lynette Kerrigan. Is Lynette here today? Mrs. Kerrigan? Not here, but she is the person in charge of field placement. Many of you will start going into the field as soon as possible, especially in the secondary program. And for elementary early childhood, probably you'll get to the field a little bit later, but we're working on the program to make the earlier field placement, but not at this point yet, okay? And we have, okay, it's no longer that now. I have to change this slide actually. Is Cheryl right here, Cheryl, Mrs. Bart. If you look at Cheryl, who's sitting right there, raising the hand, when you go to the School of Teacher Education, this is the face you are going to see, and Cheryl is the person who is going to direct you to the right person, to the right place, okay? And we also have Mrs. Long, Karen Long, who's working with Dr. Middleton for secondary field placement, and I'm not going to introduce Joshua because it's a graduate program, but Vicki Stromberger, Mrs. Stromberger right there, and she's in charge of licensure, whole licensure. This is our licensure officer, okay? She's the person who's going to monitor everything, starting from the beginning to the end, when you get to the point where you need to get licensed, okay? So this is the whole chart right here. Let me see. I would like to introduce some things to you. First of all, if you're early childhood, this is your program advisor and coordinator, actually. This is very important. If you have any questions and issues, Dr. Susan Thompson is the professor you're supposed to go to. Keep that in mind. And then, for elementary program, Dr. Kim Creasy is the professor you are supposed to go to, okay? And this is for elementary program. I really want you to know that because in the past I've noticed some of our candidates in their 4th year, they still didn't know who their program coordinators are. And this is Dr. Christy Maroy. If you are in K-12 program, art, music, and physical education, in addition to a content area advisor. Dr. Leroy is also coordinating the K-12 program, but from the School of Teacher Education side. And then we have, this is the School of Special Education. Dr. Harvey Wood is your school director, okay? And then if you are in the early childhood special education, Dr. Zaglawan is the professor who is in charge of the program. Okay. And then we have Dr. Robin Rohr is in charge of special education generalist program. So I think I have introduced your program coordinators. Now, I'm going to get down to the serious business here. Okay. I have a lot of jargons here. I would like you to know UNC's teacher preparation program up to today, all the teacher prep programs are nationally accredited and nationally recognized. Okay. In the past, this national organization is called the NK, National Council for Accreditation of Teacher Education. Now the name has changed to PAPE. Okay. And we are going to seek another PAPE accreditation because it's every 7 years actually we have to do that. And UNC professors and UNC administration have made a decision not only to be accredited by the state of Colorado, we also want to be recognized at the national level. And you know that UNC has 125 years of history as teacher preparation institution. It started as a normal school. Okay, right now UNC is legislatively designated as the premier teacher preparation institution in Colorado. And we feel very, very strongly that we're obligated to have the highest standard to try our best to produce the best teachers in Colorado. And that's what we want to do. And one of the ways we are doing that is that we use the highest standards at the national level, okay, to align our program, to revise our program, to implement our program. And that's one of the reasons we have a lot of program requirements. If you look at all the following bullet points, we have some kind of jargon like the CEC, NACE, ACEI, TESOL, NCTE, whatever. These are the national organizations for different content area teaching. I'm just going to use ACEI as an example, okay? Association for Childhood Education International, this one. So when we get the national accreditation, okay, first of all, our programs, individual programs, elementary program, early childhood program, foreign language program, every single one has to go through different organizations. We call them SPA. It's not the kind of, spend some money to have you go to a place to relax. Not that kind of SPA, okay? Specialty Professional Association, that's what it means. So our individual programs have to go through the SPA recognition first before we seek the whole national recognition for our teacher preparation program, okay? To go through all these SPA recognition, these associations don't care about what we give you. They don't care about our syllabi. They don't care about the courses. What they care about is what you can do. That's the accountability part. I can tell them, look at all these courses, look at this curriculum. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, we cover everything. They could say, what can your candidates do? Show me the evidence. Okay? They want to see you when you teach in the classroom. When they come to us, they really go to the schools to visit our graduates. They go to the principals to talk with the principals who have hired you. And they go to the classroom. So actually, we collect what you produce, not what we do as our data. Okay? How you plan your instruction, how you actually work with your students, how you can use the assessment that you have conducted, that kind of information, to redirect your teaching so that you can do a better job with your students or learners. This is the kind of data we have to collect from you. Okay? So, while you go through the program, some of this kind of data come from the courses you're taking. But some of this kind of data come from your field work. While you're working with a student, we observe you and we ask you to do something. We ask you to analyze your own teaching. We ask you to analyze your students' learning as a result of the teaching. All this kind of thing. So there's a lot of requirement, and sometimes we'll compare ourselves with some other, maybe your friend from a different teacher profession program. There are certain things they don't have to do, but you have to do. Probably this is one of the reasons, okay? The bad news is that probably sometimes it means more work, okay? It could really, it makes the program more, how do I say, okay, it's rigorous, and sometimes it's more difficult for certain people. But the good thing is when you come out of this kind of nationally accredited program, you go to different states, you say, I come from this particular program that is CAPE, actually that went through CAPE. Is a good thing because it tells about the quality of the program. It tells about what kind of teacher you are. Okay? So I would like you to have this kind of understanding, and that's why we pay a lot of attention to what you actually do is the output that you are looking at. Okay? Another word for it is outcome. Not our outcome, but it's really your performance is the outcome that you are looking at. And I just talked about at the national level. That's what we're trying to do. And we also have the state level requirement. These 6, do you see that? The 6 standards, they are the brand new standards that only came out like 2 years ago, I think. But they were discussed when I just came to Colorado more than 3 years ago. Altogether, we have only 6 standards, and all of them will be talked about, discussed, incorporated into a whole series of courses and field experience that you are going to go through. But the last one, number 6, I would like you to look at that. Teachers take responsibility for student growth. I have a question for you at this point, okay? I would like you to spend 20 seconds, more than 20 seconds, talking with each other. What do you think it means? Teachers take responsibility for student growth. What does student growth mean? Okay? Now, start talking for 20 seconds. I really wanted to talk because I'm going to ask you right now. What do you think student growth means? There's no right or wrong answer at this point. Really? Anybody? Thank you, from the back.
For me, it means not just the students learning what you're teaching them, but taking that knowledge and applying it to their lives and retaining it for the rest of their lives and into their adulthood.
Okay, anybody wants to respond to that, or add to it, or change it, or whatever? Go ahead.
I feel like when you are taking responsibility for a student's growth, you're basically, not only are you giving them something to learn, you're also understanding them from an apathetic level. You're getting to know the student deeper than a learner level, and you're being able to take what they give to you and you're returning it tenfold. You're being able to teach them something that they don't know. For example, I'm going into music education. If there was a student that was at a much higher musical level, I wouldn't just go, here's a scale that you already know. I would try and teach them something that they don't know. Let them grow.
Okay. And I know that you have different, maybe you have more responses. That's great, wonderful. Thank you very much. I want to talk about what this particular candidate has just said. I'll teach what the student needs to know. What do you mean? I have a philosophical question. What do you mean by teaching? Okay, I don't expect an answer at this point. I think it's going to take some time actually. And the question is really not only what do you mean by teaching. Okay, you have taught in the classroom. You have given the students some materials. You have done something. How do you know the students have learned? If the students have not learned, have you taught? Okay, that's the question. You have taught. You have done something. Probably want to find a way to know if the students have learned or not? But if they have not, have you taught? Keep that question in mind, okay? I don't need an answer. And this is a very important question in terms of student growth. Have you heard about Senate Bill 191? Okay. From now on, probably want to follow the news a little bit. You know, education actually is a field that is quite political, let me put it that way, okay? It's always contextualized by what is going on in the nation, in the country. And that's why when I moved from China to Canada, I learned everything I learned in China as a teacher did not work. I started from the beginning when I went to Canada, okay? Because the whole political system is totally different. Education is such a thing, okay? And Senate Bill 191, I'm not going to get into the detail, but one thing is that the teachers will be evaluated for their performance, and 50% of the teacher evaluation goes into student growth. And that's why I asked the question, what do you mean by student growth? Okay? And some people would interpret it as test scores. And some other people may have different kinds of answers, and that I'll leave it to your professors in the classroom and the field, and maybe the principals and your problem teachers you are going to meet with later on. But there are good ways to measure student growth. However, the reason I'm emphasizing on this is that as today's classroom teachers in Colorado, really, whatever you do only counts when your students show learning. The big question is how do you get your students show learning? Okay? Growth, if you think about trying to visualize growth, when you think of this plant, right, it's a metaphor. Okay? We use growth, this particular word for the plants. Okay? How do you know this particular plant has grown? Think about that, okay, in terms of learning. And another reason I'm mentioning this, it has a lot to do with our field placement. Many of you will be placed in the field to have some first-hand experience, okay? And we did experience some pushback from the school districts, actually. Because, actually it's getting better. Just when Senate Bill 191 was just first implemented, a lot of teachers don't want to have our teacher candidates to be in their classroom because they are so concerned that our candidates are not prepared to actually do a good job, so that the student growth will not be evident. See what I mean here? So we have a lot of requirements before we send you into the field. It is related to that. We want to promise the school districts we only send out qualified candidates who are well prepared to the field. It's our promise. It's our obligation. And that's why when we feel you are not ready, we are going to say no to you. I would just like you to understand, okay? It's not that just after you take all these courses, you feel you understand everything, then you are automatically placed in the field. No, we have certain requirements, okay? So, you know, if you get to that point, then we'll have a serious conversation, but at this point, I would like you to know we do have this larger context, and these larger contexts basically gives us the kind of condition for a lot of requirements. We do have expectations on campus. I am not going to talk about too much about the knowledge part. Basically, your grade, you have to reach certain, what is GPA, that's a requirement from the state, that's a requirement from the national accreditation. Even though I totally understand your GPA does not tell everything about you, okay? There are certain things, you know, we just have to do it. There are some other things that are reasonable. Still, how you perform as a student, that, okay, every single thing you do, starting from now on, I really would like you to start thinking about yourself, not as a student, as a teacher candidate. That's what I would like you to start thinking about yourself. When you write, when you talk, when you do anything, try to think about yourself as a professional. When you start thinking about yourself from a different angle, okay, you really change your way of talking, speaking, doing. And that is very, very important, okay? And I have this one, like such as how to address an instructor or professor in an email, because Eventually, you are going to be in the field, and some of you will be in the field next semester, actually, but starting from the professors. Don't start your email message with, hey, you, stop, prof. No. If this is a professor blah, 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 Dr. blah, 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 Mr. blah, 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 Mrs. blah, blah, blah. That's very, very important. Don't start with your professor's first name. You don't know that person. Okay? Until your professor tells you, you may address me as G. I know that I sound very conservative. However, that's my suggestion. In the field of teaching, it's always a good idea to start from the end of being a little bit conservative. And then you will be told, okay, or through your observation. Personally, I'm from the West Coast, okay? And where I was a teacher, guess what? I could wear shorts and sandals to go to the classroom. That was not an issue at all. And then I went to, okay, talking about diversity, okay, there's the East Coast culture and West Coast culture. They're very, very different, all right? And when I went to New Jersey, I really had to dress formally when I went to the classroom. It was a private institution. Okay, so different places have different working culture, and I would like you to start observing, okay, how it is like in the new environment where you are going to work. So that's another thing that is very, very important. Email message. If you have some question, you send a message to me, starting with Ginny. I may send the message back to you, asking you to restart your message. Okay. The reason is that actually professors they really don't care. But we don't want you to form that habit or to form the kind of way of thinking you can do that to anybody for job interview, for somebody in the workplace that you are thinking about but you don't know that person. To start with something that is more formal. That's very, very important. Okay? Professionalism and disposition, attitude, stance, ways of handling issues and conflicts. From time to time, I hear from candidates, I'm going to teach in this particular high school. No other schools I would like to work into. That's not my idea. I would like to tell you, this is a public institution. And we have the obligation to prepare our teachers to be able to work with all kinds of learners in Colorado and in the country. Diversity is a given. Okay? Basically, when you are in a school, it's a class of students. That is a given. You don't pick and choose. You cannot say, I'm not prepared to work with this particular kind of student population. I'm so sorry. You just can't say that anymore, okay? I understand for some of you that's not an issue, but for some, maybe a few of you, I don't know, I just don't know, okay? Think about it. In today's American classroom, diversity is everywhere. I'm talking about not only language diversity, cultural diversity, I'm also talking about social economic status, regional diversity, abilities, all kinds of things, basically. Okay. We need to be prepared to work with all kinds of students in this particular country, in Colorado actually. While talking about linguistic and cultural diversity, we have on average is 14% of the student population who come from linguistically and culturally diverse background with 178 languages spoken in Colorado. Okay, that's basically the statistics here. And then in Denver area, the CLD, culturally linguistic diverse student population is even much, much higher. In some school districts, they got 50%, 60%, 70% of students who don't speak English as their first language. That's what we're talking about, okay? All right, and ways of handling issues and conflicts, as I mentioned. The world is not perfect. And we want to have a fair world, but sometimes it's not always fair, actually, even in terms of fairness. Okay, probably your parents or your friends have told you that. So that's another thing. You may be working with people you don't like, and you may get into a situation where there are some conflicts, okay? How will you handle that? If you think yourself as a student, you may just throw the tantrum. That's not a good idea, I'm telling you. Okay? It's a good idea to think about, well, I'm a professional. In this kind of situation, how am I supposed to handle the situation? With your colleagues, with your peers, with your professors, you are being observed from now on. All right? This is part of the disposition, and is part of the professionalism. Okay, in the field, basically the same thing, how you talk with the school. I have to talk with the field because some of you will be placed in the field, and some of the school districts would require you to contact the schools or the teachers directly. How do you do that at the very beginning? Don't take anything for granted. These teachers, actually, they are volunteering their own time, and the school districts are giving us these opportunities so that we are better prepared. Okay, so everything after, I will take all these as opportunities instead of, okay, you owe me this. No, nobody owes us anything. Basically, we are in this field and we are trying to become the best teachers we can in Colorado, okay, and the school districts are helping us while we try to prepare the best teachers for the school districts. Okay, now actually, I'm going to stop in 1 minute. Teaching is this kind of field. We need to have the students, we have the learners in the K-12 classrooms, right? There are certain areas that will need more teachers. There are certain areas where there is an oversupply, okay? If you are in elementary, just elementary actually, you have to consider there's so many candidates in the elementary program. How do you make yourself prepared to stand out? That's the question. If you are in secondary math and science, you don't have any problems behind. But maybe, during, it happens all the time. During student teaching, the school district will just ask us, okay, could we start paying this student as our teacher? And sometimes it's, no, I don't think, we don't think, sometimes, their professor will say, no, I don't think this student is ready to be a teacher yet. Okay. Sometimes, oh, actually, this is excellent, you may hire this person. Okay. However, if you are in secondary social studies, for instance, then you'll also have to think how you prepare yourself to stand out. That's another thing. So that's why I have this, some areas, but I really would like to invite our, CASPA representatives and HR director representatives to talk a little bit about what the school districts really need in the current situation and down in the road, maybe 5 years or 10 years, following the whole national trend. Okay, and I think they are going to have 20 to 30 minutes to talk about that. If you have questions, you can also ask. All right? Okay. So actually, we have chairs.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. There's probably some other things that you would like to be doing tonight, but this is what we hope is a conversation that will help you eventually. We are CASPA representatives. CASPA is the Colorado Association of School Personnel Administrators. Basically, we're HR directors from around districts across the state. I'm Ty Valentine, Director of Human Resources for Fountain Court Carson School District down in Southern Colorado. I see a whoop, whoop, whoop there. Brad from Fountain Court Carson?
Yes.
All right. And so I'm the only Southern rep here, Southern Colorado rep. Our representatives here, I'll let them introduce themselves.
My name is Jack Kranzer. I'm Director of Human Resources in Aurora Public Schools.
I'm going to stand up, stretch the leg a little bit. I'm Rob Rankin. I'm the Director of Recruiting for the Boulder Valley School District. In that capacity, also served as an elementary principal and superintendent. So this is like 30 years that I've been hiring teachers.
And I'm Todd Fukai. I am HR Director at Cherry Creek Schools.
So we're going to probably just shotgun approach this in terms of topics. I'll just start somewhere and we'll see where this goes. Our goal here tonight is to help you down the road as you go through your teacher prep program and as you exit that program and try to ultimately get a job. And we're the ones that are out there interviewing you eventually and making the hires for our school districts. There's a lot of things that your professor was sharing with you tonight that are extremely applicable and you need to take to heart. I'm going to start with, though, the question about licensure. She mentioned that if you're in some certain areas where there's high volume of teachers out there and not high volume of jobs, you need to make yourself marketable. You need to do something in terms of adding an endorsement, adding some skill, do something that will make you stand out amongst the crowd. Okay? If you just go in and say, yeah, I'm just a great teacher and I'm going to be an elementary teacher and I know I'm good enough that I can get a job myself, that may be fine. You may be a great teacher. You may be the best teacher in the state of Colorado. But somehow you've got to get noticed. You've got to get somebody to pull you out of the crowd. And a second endorsement in special education or ESL or math or science or something like that is going to bring you to the front of the line right off the bat, where somebody then can get to know you. Because if we can't even get to know you because you're buried somewhere in applications, because all you have is elementary or PE or social studies, you've got to do something else. You've got to do something to get yourself to the front of the line. Now, if you're sitting here, because I looked around when she was asking, how many of you are special education? And I saw like 3 hands. Hey, if you have any passion at all in working with special needs kids, you can pretty much write your ticket, unless you're just a complete flop. You can pretty much write your ticket in getting a job with special education. Secondary math, secondary science. Those types of fields where we have high needs right now, we need you all to be in those fields. Sometimes you can be an elementary teacher, but get a math endorsement, secondary math endorsement or special ed endorsement, get your foot in the door, and then maybe you find out, hey, there's a passion there I didn't know about, or no, I really do want to teach elementary. Once you're in the door, then it's easier for you to move around. Okay? So let's just go on and get us talk about some of it.
Sure. I think they're juniors? Juniors?
No,
you have to start thinking in terms, of getting prepared to certainly. One of the first things you're going to start doing is thinking about field experiences, practicum, and then student teaching as well. Be strategic about that, about trying to get to different kinds of opportunities to see different kinds of classrooms. Because what you'll find in trying to diversify the classrooms that you visit is that you'll probably end up finding a classroom that you would like to student teach in. And so the wider experience that you provide yourself, don't just go to the places that are very convenient for you to go to. Try to have a wide variety of experiences in terms of your practicum. Because it's really important that you have a very good student teaching experience. I can tell you of situations where I've talked to teacher candidates for their very first job, and everything about that person told me she was going to be successful. And then when I went and talked to the cooperating teacher for that student teacher, she told me how horrible she was. And I couldn't get it because I've been doing this for decades. And I think I can spot talent when I see it. And so I ended up talking to the university professor about her and found out that she just had a very, very bad experience with this student teaching experience. So a good program and a good experience will make or break a career for you. We ended up hiring that person. And I ended up, a couple years later when I moved to a different school district, I ended up hiring her the second time. So I think that practicum experience, as you start looking at these kinds of experiences, are critical for you because you're going to find out places that you may want to student teach and maybe even teach, start your career at.
How many times can you make a first impression? Once. Remember that from the get-go. I've stood here in this room while people have sat there and had one gentleman fall asleep in the back. 2 years later, he sat down in front of me for an interview. And when I looked up and he recognized me and I recognized him, he turned white. So remember that. It's your first impression. Whether it's in a practicum situation, meeting the teacher. I think the things that Dr. Wong had up there in terms of your professionalism, your knowledge, put that to heart now. When you start doing projects for class, make sure it's perfect. Have somebody else look at your papers to make sure you've spelled things correctly, punctuated correctly, because trust me, when you fill out your application, and I screen every position in the Boulder Valley School District, I will rule out candidates because they don't know the difference between the principal in a school building and the principles by which they operate. You can laugh about it, but literally, it has cost people jobs. So make sure that your work is your best work, and you can start that right now. Boulder Valley School District, everybody seems like in the world wants to teach in Boulder. It's a beautiful place. We pay a lot of money to teachers, give a lot of autonomy, so we can be very selective. 5 years ago, you got a job in Boulder if you knew somebody. And a lot of you are probably going, okay, well, my mom teaches there, the principal lives down the street, I've got a connection. We went to an objective measure, and there are other districts in this state that are using the same. Fort Carson is doing it. The good old Gallup Teacher Insight. And it looks at your talent. Not your knowledge and skills, but your talent. Talent in terms of academic achievement. And that last standard up there, teachers take responsibility for student growth. It's not just you teaching, it's how are you going to facilitate student growth. And so that academic achievement is one of the things that we're looking at. Classroom structure and planning. Best way for classroom management is to make your lessons engaging. Make sense?
Yes.
Been there before. Some of you are kind of going, yeah, okay, so I'm not paying attention to my smartphone anymore. If your instruction's engaging, classroom management will not be an issue. So your classroom structure and planning. How long's an average teacher workday? How long? 9 hours. Close.
16.
Usually about 10 to 11 hours is what you're going to put in. Now that's time in class, at home, grading papers, planning and preparation. You need to be aware of that up front. But if the better plan you are, and the way you understand that, so that classroom structure and planning, academic achievement, classroom structure and planning, and student and parent relationships. Good teachers actually like people. They like short people, tall people, young people, old people. If you don't like people, become an accountant. Not that accountants don't like people, but it's a relationship profession. You have to be able to collaborate with other staff members. You have to be able to talk to parents, to listen to parents, and to be able to get along with kids. And those are the 5-year-old new kindergarten kid that poops his pants. Yeah. My wife's a kindergarten teacher, true story, 3 days ago. It's okay. It was only twice that day. And the second time he goes, it's not a big deal, my dad does it too. You got to be able to deal with the 15-year-old that tells you where to stick it and not lose it. Okay? All right, 3 points that I talked about with talent. What was one of them? Academic achievement. Student and parent relationships. Classroom structure and planning. Those 3 things. You also have to be technologically literate. Because part of our required application in Boulder, and I believe we're the only school district in the state right now that is doing it, we do an online digital interview. Down in Fort Carson is going to be doing it too. Ty kicks in on that. What it is, I can look at a resume. Any one of us can look at a resume. But actually, you can have somebody else do that resume for you. People will do that. Your application materials, if you've looked at it, your mom's looked at it, your roommates looked at it, it's perfect. The online digital interview gives a chance to put your personality to the paperwork. You need to be engaging. You're on stage. You're either education majors, you should all be theater minors. Because that's what happens. That's what happens. So we have you respond to 5 questions. They're very generic questions. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to teach in the Boulder Valley School District. Not a right or wrong question, not a right or wrong answer, but it gives not only, as opposed to sitting down in terms of a job fair, for me to ask you questions, but when I pass your application materials on to a principal, every principal gets to see that online digital interview. So they get to see you in person. So everybody that applies to Boulder gets an interview. And then they decide who they really want to come in and bring in person. But they even do it on a smartphone, laptop. Attention to detail is huge. Had people in torn t-shirts. You get a chance to practice. You know, you're sitting in front of an open window, and so it's all light behind you and only a black face. So we get other information out of that. But are those kind of things that you start looking at now? Attention to detail, your elements in terms of what you do in school, and making sure that you're looking at those 3 areas of talent.
Okay, so here's the good news. Unless something dramatically happens to the economy again, the jobs are going to be there. Unlike the people that came before you for the last, 4 years or so, when jobs, you heard teachers couldn't get jobs and stuff like that, the economy's back and so are the jobs. You're going to have to compete for them, even if you're in an area of high demand. But there's going to be jobs when you get out. In 3 years and 4 years, however long it's going to take you to get out, there's going to be jobs. We're hiring between these 4 districts, hundreds, almost thousands of teachers every year. And so they'll be there. Now, I'm going to give you some advice. One of them is what you do from today on, and I'm including today. I'm going to give some of you a pass on today. Because actually, when you were asked to participate in something, we looked, if you didn't notice, at who was participating and who was sharing with their neighbor and who just sat there. Realize from today on, people are watching you. It's a scary thought that everyone's watching you from today on, wherever you go, but that's what's going to happen. Every day you walk into that school is an interview. Do not wait till you graduate. Do not wait for the job fairs. If you go in and do a great job in your practicum and every day you're in there, you're going to get a job. If you do a great job in your classes, your professors tell us who's their top candidates. Your career service people tell us who we should be interviewing. The teachers that you're going to do practicums with and student teaching, they're going to tell us who the best candidates are. And I tell you what, if you've done a great job in our schools, we're not going to let you get out to these guys. We're going to lock you up as fast as we possibly can. Now
There's no trust among thieves.
So here's the big secret. Everybody wants to know what we're looking for. We're essentially looking for the same thing. Because we can teach you a whole bunch of stuff. But here's what I'm going to tell you is this. Close your eyes. Secondary people, you also. You can play too. Picture the best teacher that you've ever had. I don't care if it was your kindergarten teacher. I don't care if it was your professor yesterday. Can you see that person? Yes? Okay, open your eyes. You should still see and hear that person. Give me a few things that made that person the best teacher.
Enthusiasm.
What?
Engaging.
Engaging.
Enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm.
Approachable.
Approachable.
Passion.
Passion.
Encouraging.
Encouraging. One more.
Relatable.
Relatable. Okay. I'm not gonna make you close your eyes for this one, because I bet you it comes faster than the other one. Think about your worst teacher. Just one. I know some of you had 4 or 5 or 6 of them. Just one. Got him? Can you hear? Can you see that person? Tell me why. One word answers. Monotone.
Disorganized.
Disorganized. Rude. Rude.
Unprofessional.
Unprofessional.
Condescending.
Condescending. Now let me stop you there, because I'm sure we could do this all day. Tell me, in all of those things that made you the best teacher or the worst teacher, tell me how many of them they learned sitting where you are right now. How many have learned them for the plus or the minus in the classroom? I don't hear any of you say, wow, they did a great job on that U.S. history lesson. Did I hear that? Any of them content-related questions? Any of them skill-related questions, like they can conjugate a verb, or, you know, they did, you know what they all are? They're relationship questions. They're talent questions. They're the things we can't teach you. We can't teach you to be nice to kids. Some of you aren't. Surprisingly. We can't teach you to be personable. We can't teach you to relate to people. I'll be honest with you, while you were standing in line, I tried to engage about 5 or 6 of you. I know it's late. I know you're dragging in from class. I know you'd rather be somewhere else. But guess what? We're the ones that have jobs. You came here because you're trying to get a job and you're trying to get advice. We're not. Yeah, I mean, this is not one of those times where you got to put on your game face every single day, because you never know who you're running into. That's why I said I'll give you a pass on today. So if you're ready, if you know who you are, as I tried to talk to you, all of you are like, yeah, whatever. Here's one of those things where I would tell you, be the person that you saw the first time. Be that great teacher, and guess what? You can't fake that stuff. You can't fake being nice. You can't fake being enthusiastic. Because you know what fake enthusiasm looks like? Yes? They look like weird, happy people. You know, the stuff that the talented piece of you, and I hope all of you have it, because that's what we're all looking for. The talented part of you is going to be what gets you your job. And it's what's going to keep your job. Look, if you don't know how to do a DRA, we can teach you how to do a DRA. If you're not exactly sure, you know, what we're doing around TCAPs or how to do a MAPS testing, we can teach you all that. But it really can't teach you to be nice. It really can't teach you the important things, like think of it, rude, disorganized, unprofessional, probably mean, probably question whether they like kids. You've seen those people, haven't you? Guess what kind of damage somebody like that does? If you, I'll tell you what, do you want your, let me ask you a question, do you want to be friends with your students? Now here's, well, friends. We're not talking about the friends. But do you want your students to like you? Yes. Guess what we were all taught? No. We were taught that it's not about liking you. Your job's to teach, their job's to learn. That's not the issue. Now, here's what I would tell you is this. I have a daughter, great kid. She doesn't like you, she doesn't learn. If she doesn't think you care about her, she doesn't learn. If she thinks you like her, and she thinks you care about her, guess what? She'll do things that she couldn't do before. She'll take chances, she'll take risks. Why? Because she likes you. Because she wants to please you. Because she wants to do her very best. Isn't that what you all do? Isn't that what you did for somebody, whether it was a coach or a teacher or somebody, your parents? You did it because you liked that person and you wanted to do your very best. Those people that are mean, you didn't give the time of day and you didn't put forth your best effort. I'm not saying it's all lollipops and driving with Rice Krispies and whatever like that, because they know that. They know when you're being fake. They know when you can't control the class. They know when you know what you're not doing, when you have no idea what you're doing. Think about your great teachers. That's all you have to be, is think about your best teacher. And be that person every day. Because we're going to see you at some point in your career. Whether it's your practicum, whether it's in front of us in an interview at a job fair, whether it's 3 years down the road when you're teaching in one of our schools, or we change to a school you're teaching in, or we hear about somebody. You know how many candidates, ties down to Springs? I'm in Cherry Creek. We've had people call each other and say, hey, I got a great candidate headed your way. You really need to take a look at it. They've been teaching for us for 2 years. They're just transferring up to the area.
We also do the opposite.
Yeah. we do.
Todd,
We all know
if
each
somebody
other.
in your way,
Give stronger candidates. Guys, that's the big secret. That's what we're looking for. If you can bring that and it's here and it's genuine, you'll get a job. If you can't, it's going to be a long road. And you got, some of you have 3 years to figure that out. And I hope somebody at some point, if you don't have it, is honest with you and tells you, hey, you know what? You might want to think about going a different route. Because our kids can't afford a poor performing teacher, even a mediocre one. Some of you guys were hurt by poor performing teachers. You could have been a little bit farther ahead. You could have maybe learned a concept a lot easier. And you know it. Guess what? Some of you guys are gonna be like me. You're gonna have a kid and you're gonna want the best teacher at every single level. I don't care if you're a first-year teacher or a 20-year vet. That experience doesn't mean as much to us as talent does. So remember that when you're out there, okay?
You know what's interesting is that you talked to a bunch of faculty members just a couple hours ago from this school. And one of your faculty members asked us in one word what kind of a teacher we're looking for. And you repeated the same words we said. So we're on the same page.
you know what you like, and we like it too. We want to see those type of people with our kids, whether it's our personal kids. That's a question I ask myself a lot of times when I'm interviewing a teacher. What would my daughter say about this person if they were in the room? Is this somebody that my daughter couldn't wait to get back into her or his classroom the next day? Is this somebody that's going to be engaging and motivating and passionate and care about my kid? Those are the questions I'm asking for my own child, not to mention the thousands of other kids that I'm ultimately responsible for.
Let us throw something real quick out from an HR standpoint. We know you're in college, but what you do today could haunt you. And what I'm saying, and you know what I'm saying.
Like felonies.
If you commit a crime, you're gonna have to disclose it. And whether that is public intoxication, whether that is minor in possession, whatever it is, it could come up. Because I guarantee you, if you have a crime, and what most people don't know, if you've been convicted of a crime, it's public record. If we're not looking for it, guess who is? Your students and your parents. They will be Googling you. They will be looking at Facebook. They will be looking at Twitter. They will be looking at all those things. Because guess what? You're a teacher and you're held to a higher standard. So think about, as you set up email accounts, whatever you do on your personal one, but don't use those personal ones for a professional one. You'd be surprised at the email accounts that we've actually seen. Watch the ringback tones. If you have roommates answering the phone, be careful. Because some of them aren't very professional when they answer the phone, and you never know when it's one of us calling to schedule an interview. Be careful what you post Be careful of what your friends post. So you might have a clean account on Facebook, your friends may have posted that party. And I guarantee you, that's going to cost you your job at some point. So again, this is one of those where we're all from HR, and we've seen it. We've seen teachers end careers because of what they've done, and before they've even started. So please know that if you're going to enter the profession, we want you to enter it as a professional starting now. Because that's what your community is going to demand. You think your community, we're conservative? Wait till you get to your community. Do you really want your kid to be taught by somebody who's committed a felony? I know our community does not. So just be careful, be aware of what you're doing, and be aware of how it's going to reflect on you. Not just from a criminal standpoint, but a professional standpoint. Being late, party when you're supposed to be in there, coming in half asleep because you had fun the night before, those all reflect on you. Those all are going to be part of that resume that's going to follow you as a teacher.
One more thing that I have to say, down the road, a couple years down the road, when you're ready to graduate, you're maybe going to the UNC job fair and interviewing with some of us. Keep an open mind to what's going on. Some of you may have in your mind, and then I think you had talked about, I'm going to teach in this one school, in this one place. Be open to other possibilities. You don't know what doors may open for you that may be out there, okay? I'm in Fountain Fort Carson now. I was in Canyon City. I was a principal in Rocky Ford as well. I taught in Eads, Colorado. Does anybody know where Eads, Colorado is? Jeez. Southeast Colorado, a little town of 700, actually 600 now, I think, total population. And I used to come to the job fairs. And I might be sitting right next to Cherry Creek's table. And here's this line of candidates going all the way down the gymnasium. And I'm out there looking for people. I've got jobs to hand out, and nobody's there. And because everybody's getting in line to some of these larger school districts. Keep an open mind. Know that there's opportunities out there that can advance your career, and it doesn't mean you're going to be locked into somewhere necessarily that you don't want to be, but just be open. Also, when you schedule an appointment with me, or with Rob, or with Jack, or with Todd, make the appointment. Don't skip out on the appointment because you got another interview with somewhere else that you kind of like better. Okay? Or come tell us, hey, I really apologize, but I want to be respectful to your time, and I can't make that appointment. I could reschedule with you or something like that, or I'm just not going to make it. Don't just not show up, because I'll remember your name if you don't show up to an interview that you promised you were going to be at.
We're saying that because UNC has a reputation to clean up. Some of the people that have come before you have done that. They've scheduled interviews with us and not shown up. They've come not ready. They didn't do research on the district. They didn't dress professionally. They didn't do what they needed to do. And they didn't get jobs. You need to get past that reputation and have UNC be where it was. There's 2 of us that have graduated from this university. This used to be the place that everybody took teachers from. Now there's some competition. Regis, Phoenix, DU, UCD, Metro, and they're all turning out teachers. Remember, we're looking for the best, not just a teacher. So you need to put UNC back up on top.
With all of us using online applications, at least with ours, we have a little place over on the right-hand side for notes. And that's where no show for interview at UNC job fair. That's noted on your application. Regardless of what your teacher insight score is, it shows in terms of responsibility. And if it's a no-show, you won't get considered for anything.
Be memorable. We want to remember you positive things.
Positive.
I think I have a candidate. In fact, I saved it. I think of a candidate that I'm applied to us about 2 years ago, and it was so bad that I had to keep it because I thought, I don't want to lose this. This candidate, and I hope it's not anybody you know, I don't have a name for it, I have it saved, but virtually every question that was asked, the person answered it, Google it. We would ask, address, Google it. We thought it was a joke. Until, the guy was complaining because he wasn't getting contact. But yeah, he was memorable in the wrong way. So you want to make sure that you're memorable.
Yeah, and it is, it's that attention to details, thinking ahead of time. I sat down with an applicant last year, UNC job fair, and asked her in terms of her name, and her last name began with an N. But it was kind of a complicated name, and I said, can you spell that? Oh, it's N, like in Nazi. Nancy would have been a little bit better response, but N is in Nazi. And that was one where it's kind of going, well, that's a correct response, but it was a memorable response.
Okay, all right. Thank you very, very much for this. My observation is that this is really, really useful. Is that right? Okay, yeah. And I really trust that all of you have the enthusiasm and want to make a commitment, and really from today on, and that's what you are going to do. All right? So that, okay, thank you very, very much.
We're reading some stuff here
Sure.
that if you'd like to take it with you, you can.
Don't leave first because I do have something to cover, okay, but I don't want to keep them here for too long. They arrived around noon time, so actually it's quite a long day for them, all right? So this is for our, how do we do that? Actually, this is kind of thing that is a piece of paper that you have to sign, and Ms. Stromberger has a piece of paper, right?
Yeah, everybody needs to check in up at the top with Cheryl. That's the only way you'll get credit for attending tonight.
Yeah, and so this information is right on that piece of paper. We really want to make sure that you read it, you understand it, and you know what you're getting into. It's very important for you to pass. I have to talk about it right now because there's a test actually you have to pass. The praxis or place test before you get into student teaching. Okay, and we really don't make exceptions. Maybe in the past 3 years since I came to UNC, I made 2 exceptions, but they are really, really, there's no way for anybody to repeat the same reason. Let me put it that way. Okay, so extremely difficult exception. We really want you to pass praxis. That's one of the, we have to show to the school district that you are really, really well prepared. Even though I understand a test does not tell everything about you, unfortunately, nationally, people are looking at the test score. Okay, it's not what I believe in. Somehow, it's one of the indicators that Colorado State and the National Accreditation would use to indicate your preparation. So we really don't have a lot of choices. Okay? I'm just telling you, some people can pass the test first time, they take it, no problem. Some other people need several times, okay? Sometimes people are just not good test takers, and in that kind of situation, probably have to work a little bit harder. And once you feel that in terms of content, you are prepared, take the test as soon as possible, just in case you cannot pass it, then you still have work on it, you want to take it for the second time or maybe the third time. If you wait till the last minute, quite often, then you wouldn't have the time. You cannot get into student teacher, have finished all the coursework, then what do you do? Then we'll have to ask you to stop, for a whole semester to prepare for the test. And you don't want to be in that kind of situation. So this is one thing that I want to emphasize. Think about the test, okay? Let me see, this is also in the paperwork that you're going to sign. It's the same thing right here. Okay. This is one thing I want to talk about a little bit. On that form, actually, there's this kind of, the link right there. If you really click on it, you are going to see something we call disposition rubric right here. So when we observe you exactly as what the HR directors have just talked about, really this is not about your GPA. This is not about, what kind of knowledge you have about history or math or biology. This is a disposition and professionalism. We're talking about how you dress, how you talk, how you interact with your peers, how you work with others, how you talk with the principal, how you talk, if you are on time, all kinds of things. So they are all here. And this is the chart that actually we're going to use at least twice in your program. All the teacher preparation programs, we're going to use this twice to evaluate you. So even though you could be a straight A student, if you does not show the good thing in terms of professionalism, we may not send you to the field as student teaching. I would just like you to know that, okay? Teacher preparation is a little bit different from like if you're studying as a scientist, as a historian. We have the professionalism, this part of it, okay? Just let you know. So don't get surprised. So I didn't know how to do that as a teacher. That's why I'm sharing this with you. It's very important, the professionalism, exactly as what the HR directors have told us about, okay? And then,
Sorry, I'm interrupting your class. Sorry, they stole me from over there. They went that way. Okay, sorry.
actually, you're going out that door.
Okay, I'm just gonna walk around. Sorry for interrupting.
All right. So if you look at that, we have the teacher candidate place. Oh, this another thing for the placement actually in the field. Teacher candidate cannot be placed in a school where they were one student or where they have a close relative attending and or working. We really have good reasons for that. We do make exceptions. There are the kind of situations that we make exceptions, but it's case by case. But generally speaking, we don't allow that because that could cause a lot of complications actually. Okay. Let me see what else. This one. We don't have to talk about that. Okay. The last couple of slides. This is something maybe you care about. How to handle issues of grade disputes with professors. You are in the second year, right? Sophomore. And who knows when that will happen. You are taking courses not only from the College of Education, okay? You are also taking courses in offered from other colleges, correct? Like LAC courses or accounting area, whatever. You really have to know where that course comes from. If it is a mathematics course, actually comes from the NHS, basically Natural and Health Science College, okay? The best way to handle the grade dispute is to go to the professor first. It is very important. In institution of higher education, professors are the only people who have the right and authority to change a grade. I'm the associate dean of the college. I'm the director of School of Education. I don't have any authority over professors when it comes to grade change. Because when we hire a professor, there is a kind of rigorous search process. We have to hire based on what we know, the best knowledge we have about the professor. This person is qualified, that he knows what he's doing, or she knows what she's doing, okay? So for a mathematics course, I don't know that well about what that course is about. Is that right? So it's the professor. You have to go to the professor. But I'm telling you, it's not a good idea to say, I worked so hard. I was a straight A student. How come you gave me a C? That's not a good reason. Really, okay? Let's talk about working hard. I'm the customer. I paid you to, well, I said I was going to pay you after you built this house for me. Instead, you built a beautiful garden for me. Do you think I'm going to pay you? No. You worked very hard, right? So that's not the good reason. A lot of students use that. Okay, that's not a good one. Another thing is that actually you really have to show to the professor, you have demonstrated what the professor said that you need to demonstrate. You cannot say, I don't understand. What? Go to the syllabus. Go to the project requirement. You have to do some homework yourself, actually. Okay? And see how your project, your assignment, has actually met the requirements in the syllabus, in the assignment. You find it out for the professor, and then you take the two things to the professor and say, I'm so sorry, there's something that I don't quite understand. I thought this particular part, see I highlighted this, actually addressed this particular requirement in your syllabus. All right? Sometimes you may not get the points because this professor got so busy at the end of the semester, he or she was grading 200 papers. I could be that professor, and I would appreciate you showing me exactly how you have demonstrated. When you help me, I could say, oh yeah, indeed, I missed that. And I could have your grade changed. Or maybe I could tell you, well, you know what, yes, I can see you tried hard. However, the requirement actually really means whatever. And then at least you get some kind of explanation. Okay? So that's how I would like you to encourage you to do when it comes to the point where you want to appeal for a grade. That's the most effective way. Of course, if your conversation does not go well, your understanding is totally different from the professor's, and you really feel that for a good reason, and you cannot, whatever the arguments you have cannot match, that's the time you need to bring the case to the department chair of that professor, but not me. Because let's say this is math, okay? You have to bring it up to the chair of the mathematics department, all right? And then if this still cannot be resolved, the next line, the chain of command of the next person is the dean of the college. But again, if it is a math course, then actually it's the dean in that college, not me. Only the course in the CEBS, in ST, School of Teacher Education, you go to the professor first, and then probably the program coordinator, and then it comes to me. If you're still not happy in terms of how you want to resolve it, then you go to the dean of college of education. Okay, so I'm just giving you some tips because I used to be a professor working with students, encounter all these kind of things, and when actually the students could be successful getting the grade changed. But really, really, you need to do some homework. It just is not going to help you if you only say, I work hard, or I was a straight A student. I could say, well, then this is your first C. Okay? So, but if you do have a good reason, you really have the evidence, I tell you, great. Actually, you earn your grade by showing evidence of learning. Okay? Evidence of learning. So probably you can help the professor by providing that evidence of learning. Okay? So I'd just like to, tell you about this because a lot of students really, at the college level don't know how to approach this. Let me see what else I have. Okay, so that was the last slide, okay? And any general questions, not the kind of specific question just for you, but general questions at this point? Let's go ahead.
I went around for around an hour the website, going back and forth to 2 pages, and I couldn't find the placement test. Now click on
Placement test.
and then forms, and I'm going to take her to the EDFE.
Are you secondary? Are you secondary education? That won't be available till the 15th of September.
Okay, thank you.
And
Good question, it's a general question that everybody should know.
Yeah, Dr. Middleton for secondary ed students is going to meet at 7 tonight in this room. If anyone wants to come back for the mandatory orientation for placement for step 161. And then she'll be here tomorrow at 6:30 as well.
Any other questions?
I do. I don't know if I know the answer to that particularly. So, is like when we're a senior or graduating, how important is volunteer work and like outside influences with the schools, like outside of the requirements for education? Can you tell me if that's like how much that weighs on the job?
Actually, that part, we never talked about it, but my understanding that it's always a good idea because, when you volunteer outside your requirement, that shows your passion. Yeah, that shows basically what kind of person you are. That's exactly what they have talked about, right? Yeah, so it's not a fake because it's really outside the requirement. It shows the genuine.
So the mandatory orientation tonight is for students that are currently in step 161 right now, or students that are about to.
Secondary?
Students who are going to start 161 next spring, next semester. So you have to go to an orientation this semester to find out how to request a placement in a school for next semester.
Okay, got it.
That's all I know.
There's another meeting on October 1st. You can't make it.
Okay.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, back and then.
Should we start making like relationships with potential schools that we want a student to teach at, or do we wait for that?
You need to wait actually.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want our candidates randomly, Some schools have very rigid requirements in terms of how they would like to receive information from our candidates. Actually, different school districts have different rules. It's very chaotic. Oh, no, it's not chaotic, it's just very different. Very diverse, how about that? Okay. And actually, they have to have a list to tell us what kind of requirements which schools have, because they are different. Some schools don't want you to contact the teacher. Some schools ask you, require you to. Just they are different.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Wait, so the meeting tonight's mandatory orientation meeting? Sorry, this is probably a really obvious question, but is there a difference between secondary students and English education students?
No.
English is secondary.
Secondary would be all content areas that, I don't know who asked the question. 7 through 12, grades 7 through 12. So if you're majoring in a specific subject, that would be tonight, or tomorrow night, or October 1st.
Okay. Did I see more hands or am I? Oh, okay. Sorry.
So Lynette Carrigan is the field placement person that we talked to about observation hours as well. I just wanted to ask for any K-12 art students, we start observation really soon. Does she organize those hours, or does it just go through, like, for example,
Actually, your content area advisor works with to make it happen.
Perfect.
Yeah, work closely.
All right, endorsement and content area the same thing?
Endorsement in content area, this is a jargon, right? Yeah, this actually is just your license, your content area. Yeah. Officially, we call it endorsement, like English or mathematics, but actually it's a license. Well, elementary is the elementary teaching license, but if you're talking about ESL, that's endorsement.
So like biology?
Biology, actually, in Colorado, there's no endorsement in biology, it's endorsement in secondary science. It's science. Okay, Colorado doesn't distinguish physics from biology